Finally, reaching the classroom after the usual walk from the dormitories, I step inside. My eyes immediately turn to the third seat from the left in the back row, Hanako's seat. It's empty. After glancing around the classroom, it looks like she isn't here yet. Two girls from the newspaper club are here in the two seats to the left of Hanako's, as are Shizune and Misha, but that's about it. We exchange morning greetings before I take my seat. I have to admit that this is a bit of a relief. This gives me at least a few more minutes to think. Not that I haven't been doing so previously, ever since our trip to town. Hanako's been on my mind. I still don't know what makes my relationship to Hanako. I like her. I can't admit that much to myself. I want to protect her and shield her from the pain she feels. I really don't think my feelings are just those about friendship anymore. Ooh. But that said, I feel like I don't even know her. If I made a move on her, how would she take it? Is it an emotional state that allows her to keep a reasonable decision about a relationship? How would she cope with anything that might happen afterwards? There's also the possibility that I'm completely misinterpreting Hanako. Not a difficult thing to do with someone whose social skills seem to be underdeveloped. The sound of footsteps comes up to the door, making me perk up. Aw yeah, it ends up being Miki. She barely acknowledges my existence when I accidentally make eye contact with her. I'm about to look away, but no other person comes in after long she takes her seat. I feel myself freeze as I see Hanako enter. This isn't a rational reaction, but I have no idea about how I should act or what I should say to her. Nothing. You're in class. Wait till after class, maybe. For a moment, our eyes meet. And then, just as quickly as she looks away, moves to her seat without saying a single word. As is now usual for the period following classes, my face is buried deep in a book that I find thoroughly uninteresting. Studying is not something that comes naturally to me. I didn't study a lot before coming to Yamaku, and until now I've largely managed to coast through on talent alone. It's frustrating that I can't do that anymore. Judging by the faces of the other few students in the library, I don't think I'm alone in my distaste for this. Misery loves company, I suppose. I decided to spend lunchtime with Hanako since we haven't had lunch together for a while now. May as well have spent the time studying, though. Jesus, aside from pathetically small snippets of small talk, there was barely a single word between us. Why does she keep doing this to me? I just want to protect her and be there for her. Bro, shut the fuck up. Don't say things like that. You're weird. But every time I feel we're coming closer, we end up further away. That's cute. Are you busy? Whoa, Hanako. My head whips around in surprise, causing her to retreat in fright. That was bad timing. If I hadn't been thinking about her at that very moment, I probably wouldn't have been so nearly startled. Sorry, you just startled me. I find myself staring at her longer than I should, so I go back to the text lying on the table in front of me. I feel more like I'm just staring at words rather than actually reading. I get the feeling Hanako could notice this as well, so I sigh and close the book. What's up? I was just wondering what you were reading. She looks a little downcast after my reaction to seeing her. Aww. Giving up on the prospect of getting any more work done, I get up and return the book to its place on a nearby shelf. Just an English textbook. Has it helped? It helped me realize that I don't like English, yeah. Hanako gives a small giggle. I may muse on the strange state of our friendship, but I do know and such little gestures are things that I wouldn't... What? But I do know that such little gestures are things that I wouldn't see were I not at least some distance closer to her than when we first met. I look at her for a moment, thinking about what I do and don't know about her. It's a slightly depressing topic. Is something wrong? If I want to know something more about her, maybe I should stop being so evasive about it. Talking with Lily as an equal rather than being constantly in fear of causing her to become upset worked fine. So I should try a straightforward approach with Hanako as well. Hey Hanako, do you mind if I ask you a question? I don't mind. I want to know what your life was like. Your life before coming to Yamaku. Okay, that's a little too forward, I think. Only because you literally just compared yourself to talking with Lily. Of like, yeah, I just like talked to Lily without being afraid of like, you know, her running away. So, Hanako, what was it like when you got completely emotionally destroyed? It's like you didn't ask Lily what it was like when she lost her sight, or like, were you born blind? Like, you didn't say that, right? Like, I know you're not directly asking her about the fire, but you're asking her about something really traumatic, instead of just, being like, so, kind of stuff you've been reading, like normal conversation, and then she'll be like, oh, I was reading this book about trains, and you'll be like, yo, I've been on a train once, and that's how a conversation starts. You don't just go like, what's your life like? She hesitates. I briefly consider backing off, but she seems to be taking the question quite seriously. I sit and watch her, silently letting her take her time. She's not making eye contact with me and looks almost as if she's arguing with herself into letting herself open up to me more. That was a big hiccup. I'm sorry. Her answer finally comes in a stiff, almost reluctant nod. She looks far more tense than she did before I had asked. Okay, but in return, you have to tell me about your life as well. I nod and follow her as she begins to walk around the library so we can talk. Or out of the library, maybe. By now, most of the students have already left the main building, so apart from a few people hovering around the club rooms, the hallways are largely empty. I guess we'll start with coming to Yamaku. Let's see. I was in the hospital when my parents first told me about Yamaku Academy. Doctors told me I shouldn't go to my old school anymore. My parents agreed and persuaded me to apply for Yamaku, even though it would mean living away from them for the first time. It must have been hard for you. Yeah, well, I have to admit that it was. My parents both working long hours and full time, so having to live reasonably independently wasn't anything new to me. It was the fact that I was going to a school for disabled students that hit the hardest, I think. And you? A small group of chatting girls passes us near the stairs. Am I in frame? I am. While Hanako pressing herself tightly to my side until we reach the ground floor. She doesn't usually come this close while just walking in school, so I'm a little put off. The staff at the orphanage offered some options of what I could do. Middle school hadn't been good, so I thought that Yamaku might be better. It was isolated, and I thought it might be easier to get by here with most of the others being disabled. It's pretty ironic that the reasons Hanako looked forward to Yamaku are the exact reasons I hated the idea. To me, it felt like I was being shunted somewhere away from society and everyone I knew. To Hanako, that was probably an inviting prospect. So what was life like at the orphanage? It was okay. The staff there were nice. They took care of us. Children didn't talk much to me, but I didn't really want to talk with them either. So I didn't mind. The orphanage had a library, so I started to read to pass the time. The staff didn't mind it because it made me easier to handle than many of the other children. Didn't make any friends there? No, I think my life was on hold during that time. I knew that, but I didn't mind. To think her life was on hold all that time, though. Depending on whether when the fire happened, that was a huge chunk of her life. No parents, no friends, apparently no relatives. We walk through the door in the courtyard. I expect to need to avert my eyes from the sun, but now it's well into the sunset. Hanako's eyes keep flicking to me, so I look away from her for a bit. What was it like in the hospital? I quickly clear my thoughts and try to refocus them. I hesitate for a bit, but I know that I have to tell her. We're close enough for her to feel comfortable telling me this, so it's only fair that I reciprocate. It was okay at times, but others it was pretty bad. At the beginning, everyone sent their sympathies and came to visit often. It was just like breaking an arm or something. Meeting all my friends was one of the good times. Iwanako came in often as well, more often than anyone else. It was there. Sorry. But there were the bad times too. When my friends slowly stopped visiting, I began to realize how grave my situation was. It reminded me that this wasn't just a broken limb, but I was now a different person than before. Even the times Iwanako would spend... God, stop talking about Iwanako. Even the times when Iwanako would spend time with... What? Even the times Iwanako would spend with me became torturous. By the end, we were reduced to silence, whereas before she'd be talking constantly. But that's how Hanako always was. She may have been a fragile person, but she would talk constantly to try to hide that fact. Anything about anything in particular, just talk. I think the 3 lowest points would have been when my parents told me that I wouldn't be going to my old school anymore. My birthday passing while I was in the hospital, and when Hanako left for the first time. Leave that off, you fucking idiot. We leave the school buildings behind us as we begin to follow the main path through the gardens. There may have been an odd bystander in the school buildings, but outside we're practically alone. What was your middle school like? I liked it. I grew up in a really metropolitan area, and the middle school was nearby, so it was pretty crowded. I didn't mind it because I'm used to being in crowds and around lots of other people. You know, unlike you. You hate that. I got good grades. I played soccer with my friends. Spent a fair bit of time hanging out outside of school with them as well. Did get teased a bit over my hair, though. Your hair? I grimace a little as I put my hand over my hair to cover it. I keep getting tufts and strands that refuse to flatten or stay where I wanted them. I get that all the time. My mother wouldn't let me just get my head shaved. I had a habit of popping out no matter how much I tried to brush it down. That's right. It still does a little. Don't bring it up, Hanako. I was worried I would get that reply. Sorry, I didn't mean to. I give a mild laugh and wave it off. It's fine. I know it still does. It feels strange to have someone act so interesting in my past. If it were anyone else, I feel so interested in my past. If it were anyone else, I'd think that they were just acting polite, but that's something I really don't think Hanako would do. Or if she did, she'd do it so badly that it would be obvious. Just wants to know, bro, chill. There are a number of girls in the common room on the ground floor, and Hanako presses herself to my side once more as we pass them. I expect her to break off, but she instead continues to cling on to me as we walk towards the stairway. Something about the way she's holding on to me feels different from usual. I'm left deep in thought as we walk up the stairs and down the hallway. It's only when we stop that I look up and realize that I've been following her without question. Ooh, why did we come to your dormitory room? She looks straight at the door without as much as a glance in my direction. Hanako? She moves to answer, but stops herself. Instead, she silently breaks from my side, opens the door, and steps inside. I look up and down the hallway, a bit lost as to exactly what I should do. Shrugging, I decide to follow her since I don't have any reason to do otherwise. Hanako stands in the middle of her room and looks straight at me. It's unnerving when she does this. It's just such an unusual reaction for her. I open my mouth to speak, but she preempts me. Could you close and lock the door? Hanako's hand reaches for her chest, grabbing her blouse at her heart. I turn and lock the door shut, then freeze. The atmosphere is beginning to feel quite strange. This feeling is only made more profound when I hear the curtains being pulled behind me. It's going to be night soon. We're a guy and a girl in a bedroom. She's closing the curtains, and I'm shutting and locking the door. She can't really have that in mind, can she? I gulp and turn around very, very slowly. Hanako's in the center of the room, but hasn't turned back to face me. You told me about your past, so I have to tell you mine. So you really have to close and lock the door for that? I think they can hear us through the walls anyway. She takes a deep, shuddering breath and pauses for a number of seconds. Her hands move to the ribbon and begin to tug, confirming my thoughts. All but confirming my thoughts. Hanako. Please, don't say anything. Damn. I obediently stay hushed as she slips off her ribbon and continues to unbutton her blouse. Before working the clip on her bra, the process is slow. Perhaps it feels just a little slow because of what she's doing. I'm not sure. Frozen to the spot, all I can do is watch Hanako, hands trembling, unclips her skirt and lets it drop to the ground. This is the point of the episode where I have to point out that there is adult content. I don't know who's watching this, but there is adult content, and I'm going to censor it because I'm a responsible YouTuber. What am I going to censor it with? I don't know yet. We'll see. But there is adult content. Be warned, 18 plus something. I don't know. Not yet. This is just her scarring. This is an important scene, but you'll know. Okay, maybe. I don't know. Finally, she takes off her blouse and in her hands and draws it off, her bra falling from her shoulders. And so, Hanako stands in the middle of the room, all but bared, save for her stockings and underwear. Why did I clicked it and the the screen died. That wasn't me. That was the game. This is me. All this is me. All of me. All of me. Sorry, I should take this more seriously. My eyes immediately drawn to the scarring on her back and the skin on her right side. This is of a similar texture to that of her face, but it's also stretched and taut, covering a much larger area. The scarring is by far the worst on her shoulder, buttock, and thigh. And it's purple. Or is that just like a weird shadow? I think it's just a weird shadow. Just as my heart attack redefined my life, this is the event that redefined Hanako's. If I'd seen this when I first met her, I'd have been shocked, not only at the sight, but also at the idea that something like this was survivable. But after having time to get used to the idea, after seeing the scars on her face, hands, and collar, my reaction is more measured. My reaction right now is not due to her scarring, but to her body. God. The fire happened when I was 8 years old. It was night and we were sleeping when it started. Hanako's voice trembles. The shaking of her blouse is giving away the fact that her hands are doing just the same. I curled up in a ball when the fire swept over me. My mother tried to shield me. That's the only reason I lived. Hanako's eyes begin to moisten, her voice cracking under the combined pressure of her exposing herself to me like this and reliving those painful memories from so long ago. I want to say something, anything, to make her feel better. I can't, though. I feel completely useless when faced with a situation like this. She's forcing herself to come so close, yet it's times like this that I feel most distant to her. I'm sorry for making you see this. There's no point in denying the obvious. I think what I should say now, and Hanako wants me to say now, is the truth, what I genuinely, honestly believe. It doesn't matter. You're a wonderful person, Hanako. Your body doesn't change that. She looks at me for a long time, her breathing uneven as she tries to remain steady amidst the emotions we're both feeling. Feels less she's looking at me than she's looking through me. I slowly walk towards her and gently place my hands on her shoulders as she lets go of her blouse. She gasps a little, not in fright, but in startlement. Sorry, I didn't fully grasp what I was reading. She has to place her hands on her shoulders. Being so close to her causes my mind to become a jumble of feelings. The scarring on her shoulder, plain to see, and leather, like to the touch, conflicts strangely with her otherwise soft skin and silky dark hair. Hanako is a girl, with all that entails. She's taller than usual for a woman, but she still has curves in the right places. The nape of her neck, just visible thanks to her hair slung over her shoulder, is alluring. I know that I'm not pretty, like Lily. I just wanted you to see me, the real me. I've already seen the real you, though. You didn't need to take off your clothes for that. Whoa, okay.